again, like Mark introduced, I'm going to let the team tear it up as they have all summer. They've done an amazing job. And just my personal aside, I think I've learned 5 times more than the 5 of them learned being having the honor of being their lead. So to my cohort, thank you. You've just been motivating and inspiring just for even for myself. So on that, let's Drupal.
Thank you, Kyle. Let me share my screen. Can y'all see this? All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are the Drupal module team, and over the past 10 weeks, we've been working on extending the functionality of this open source Drupal module called BasicShib authentication to kind of improve the management of user roles and then website content editing access in Drupal websites. And we're very excited today to share with all of you what we've done in our journey. Sorry. So in this presentation, we will be going over kind of the context to our problems of what Drupal is, what Shibboleth authentication is, and then leading into that, some of the problems that our stakeholders were having with these existing technologies. And then we'll address like what our proposed solution is. And then we'll give a demo of our final product. And then in the roadmap section, we'll give a reflection of our Code Plus experience and journey. And finally, we'll be taking any questions at the end. Sorry, my laptop is malfunctioning. Sorry about that.
All right. So this is our team. We're all rising sophomores studying computer science, and we're led by Kyle Skrinak, our talented and fearless mentor during these 10 weeks. All right. So what is Drupal? Drupal is a content management platform similar to WordPress and other website builders. Individuals, firms, and agencies all turn to Drupal for a seamless website creation and management experience. So for better reference, think about the hundreds of sites owned by Duke for, let's say, the math department. In the day-to-day, content managers, such as professors or heads of the department, will use Drupal to add, remove, or update content from those sites. They don't really need to have, this deep understanding of back-end website development to do so. They use Drupal's easy-to-navigate interface to manage their websites. So people use Drupal not just because of its accessibility and UI, but also because of its scalability. Some of the busiest sites in the world run on Drupal because of its ability to handle high traffic and accommodate content growth. Interestingly, Drupal is also open source, so it's built off of around 47,000 modules that web admins can add or remove to their sites, depending on what functionality they're looking for. For example, you might need your site to allow visitors to enter information into a web form. So in this case, you will install a web form module to your site. These modules are developed by the open source community. So this is a community which is made up of about 120,000 active contributors. With this project, we've become part of that massive community of developers of Drupal modules.
One of the many modules available in Drupal is the BasicShib module. The Shibboleth authentication module is something we're all very familiar with because we use it to log into Duke websites every day. Shibboleth is a form of security. It makes sure you're a part of Duke before it lets you have access to the complete website. However, the current BasicShib module does not cover the full scope of web admin needs. After talking to our stakeholders, we were able to identify 3 common problems with the current BasicShib modules. The first one is compatibility. Since many are still in the process of migrating sites from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9, we wanted to make sure that our module is compatible with both versions of Drupal. The second problem is a lack of customization. We want our module to allow the administrator to customize roles and access rights. The off-the-shelf version made it difficult for web administrators to quickly update and edit website permissions for high volumes of users. The third problem is scalability. Since the current SHIB module that Duke uses is hard-coded, it is specific and not general enough for other universities to use.
So the best practice to address these issues within a Drupal module is to create a plugin. And in order to make sure that users could integrate BasicShib and customize website management, we decided to extend the BasicShib module by implementing a grouper plugin. Grouper helps simplify management and collaboration by giving everyone in a group the same access privileges. So for example, if a new developer is hired to work on Pratt websites, they can be added to the Pratt website manager group via grouper and automatically have the same permissions as the rest of the team. And if someone leaves the team, they can be removed from the group and will no longer be able to work or access those sites. So in summary, our solution takes the BasicShib module and makes it more scalable, compatible with Drupal 8 and Drupal 9, and adds on grouper functionality. In action, this would look like a user requesting login through Shib, as shown in the diagram. Then once the user is authenticated, the grouper plugin would talk to the BasicShib module to seamlessly filter out certain information about the user that is received from Shib authentication. The web admin then assigns each user a role with specific editing permissions based on specific user characteristics. So this module will enable Duke and others to more easily access secure content for websites.
And now let's see all of that in action through a demo. So before we get started with the demo, let's set up some groundwork for our scenario. So first, recall that our module is designed to enhance the management of user roles and content editing access in Drupal sites. And then also recall that the grouper software allows an admin to put people into certain groups based on specific characteristics so that we can grant users sharing certain attributes the same level of access through our plugin. For our demo, let's say that I, as a web admin, decided that I wanted the content editor group. I can go into Duke's group manager, as seen on the picture here, and put users into this group. Here we put Tomas and Jason into our content editor group here. And then grouper will have the ability to communicate across platforms by referencing the grouper path ID to release user information. This right here below the content editor, that is the path ID. And yeah, so now we'll show a demo of how our site implements grouper functionalities within BasicShib. This is the website we're using to test our module. Can all of you hear the sound?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me start. This is the website we're using to test our module. As web admins, we might want to manage who has access to editing this website, and we can do that through our newly developed BasicShib module. The first step would be to log in using the familiar Shibboleth authentication, which is part of the original functionality of the BasicShib module that the team built on. Once we're in, we can see the web administrator panel on top. And if we go to the configuration page, since we already have the BasicShib module enabled, we will be able to see the BasicShib settings button. As a web administrator, I am trying to assign certain people to have certain content management roles for this website. Rather than manually doing that for each user one by one, I want to assign a role, such as content editor, to a particular set of users. What the grouper software does is that it bundles such sets of users. Here we can scroll down to the plugin enabled section to enable or disable grouper functionality in our module. Since I'm trying to manage content access for my site, I will enable the grouper plugin. Now we can save the configuration change we just made, and then scroll down again and go into the grouper settings form that became enabled after we enabled the grouper plugin. On this page, we can choose to give certain grouper groups specific user roles and grant them specific site editing privileges. These roles are dynamically updating based on the settings I, as a web administrator, have established on that site.
For example, if I wanted to add a role called developer that allows a user to have permission to access some development features, I can go up to the People tab, and I can go to Roles and add a role. So let's go ahead and make a role called developer. Now, if we scroll up to permissions, I can specify that I want users with the development role to have access to certain develop permissions. So you'll see the permissions that the developer has on the right, and we'll go ahead and check the permissions under develop, and we can save that configuration. Now, if we go back to the grouper settings page under config, BasicShib settings, and the grouper form, you can see that this role is now an option for me to assign a group to. If you recall from earlier in our presentation, we have a group called Content Editor that has two users, Jason and Tomas. I want to make sure that every user in this group has the permissions of an editor for my Drupal site. In order to do this, I must paste in the grouper ID path into the corresponding role, in this case, editor. So I'll save that configuration. And to see the magic happen, we can look at the user information for our site under people. Part of the specifications from our stakeholders was that a new role lasts just for the duration of the session to ensure that role permissions don't linger after a user is removed from a group. At this point, Jason and Tomas, the two users in the group that we're working with, haven't logged in, so their roles are the same. However, once they do log in, we'll be able to refresh the page and see that their roles have updated to include editor. So let's refresh the page. And we'll see that they are now both editors and will have all the editor access and permissions. So we'll also be able to go back to the grouper settings form and either remove groups from that role or change the groups that they have aligned with certain roles. So let's say that we wanted Jason and Tomas that were both in this content editor group to now have the permissions of the developer role that we just finished making. We can simply move the pathway down to developer and save the configuration. Now, at this point, if we go to people, they should still only have the editor permission since we haven't removed that from them. But if they were to log out and log back in again, once we refresh the page, we'll see that they will no longer have editor permissions and will only have developer permissions. So let's refresh the page and we should see those permissions update. And now they're both only developers.
So that is the demo. And next we'll be talking about the exciting part, how we actually contributed this back to the open source Drupal community. So
yeah, so if we go to the BasicShib module page on the Drupal website, you'll see that just yesterday, Kyle was able to push up our changes to the open source community. So you'll see these two versions, which is the updates that we made to the module with the plugin, along with some descriptions, a list of the contributors and our stakeholders for all their support. And you can also see all the releases. If you click on the View All Releases tab on the Drupal site, you can see how it started off in 2018 with the original BasicShib module, and since then we've added onto it with the updating the versioning, and then our most recent plugin, which we were just able to put in yesterday. So that was really exciting for us. So kind of as an overview of where we've been throughout the past 10 weeks, we spent a lot of the first part of our project with a lot of training and setup. We were focused on setting up our environments and learning about the priorities of our stakeholders, researching existing modules. And all of that led us to the solution that we've been talking about for the past 10 minutes. And after wrapping up the development phase of implementing our grouper plugin and making sure that all our code was consistent with the standards for the Drupal community, we were able to contribute it back up to Drupal. And our next steps are just to refine that module and conduct some more thorough testing. And before we open the floor to questions, we just want to take a minute to thank Code Plus, our stakeholders, Isabel and Jen, and our team lead, Kyle. Coming into the project, all of us were completely unfamiliar with Drupal and with PHP and Symfony. But with our support system, we were able to develop a project from a pretty abstract idea of just extending a Drupal module to having a solid deliverable that solved an actual problem. And learning that entire web development framework while coming up with a viable solution to the stakeholders' needs was very daunting in the first few weeks. But Kyle was so instrumental in providing us with resources and people and workshops that we could use to ask industry professionals any questions that we had. This resulted in us being able to learn so much about project workflow and collaborating with individuals across different campuses and disciplines, and developing solid communication and presentation skills. We've all had a really great experience in Code Plus and are so thankful for the opportunity we've had and the people that we've been able to meet throughout this summer. Now we'll take any questions.
So I have something to share from Ed Gomes that he had to leave and sent me a chat. So now I'm looking for my chat window. So he says, I'm one of the sponsors of this group, but I have to jump on another call. Please pass along my thanks for this effort. The group did a fantastic amount of work in a very brief period of time. Their work with Duke folks and developers within the Drupal community was outstanding, and they resolved some complicated integration issues that will have very broad implications for our sites and others with similar needs. I also want to give my thanks to Kyle. He did a fantastic job coordinating this team. So thank you. I hope you guys are really proud of yourselves. I noticed in the screen that was shown a moment ago where you guys had submitted the module, that it said 101 sites are using the module.
Yeah, BasicShib is used in a lot of Duke sites, and I'm sure across a lot of other higher ed websites as well. Yeah, this is really exciting for us.
Yeah, it's already implemented. It's already making a difference.